Hello, hello, folks. Happy Wednesday. Feels like I haven't seen y'all in weeks. When was the last time we did a webinar? I don't even know. All right, we have some folks hopping in. As always, we're going to give everybody a few minutes just to join. I'm going to preface everything by apologizing for how I sound. Y'all are going to have to bear with me today. If you can't tell, I'm just getting over a cold. I'm on the other side. We're doing great, but I do sound like this. So apologies. I probably shouldn't even have plugged the mic in today. Just like go mic free. But no, you guys get all of the sore throat voice today. For those of you who are just jumping in, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. I would love for you to answer those so we can get a sense of who's in the room with us today. So you know the drill. Go ahead and answer those 3 questions that pop up on your screen. And then once you've done that, go ahead and say hi in the chat box. Introduce yourself. Let us know your name, your organization, where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see who's in the room with us today. And also, can y'all see my screen? Just to confirm, everybody can see my slides. Okay, Scott can see them.
We're good to go there.
Oh, and I just realized I had the chat disabled, so you couldn't even say anything. I just enabled the chat. You
Excellent.
can tell we haven't done an event in a couple weeks. I just enabled the chat, so now all of you can go in there and introduce yourselves. Hi, Pamela. Special shout out to Scott from Pamela.
Yes, Pamela, I hope you are well. We're chatting soon. I'm looking forward to that.
Say,
I always love seeing where people are tuning in from, and I always assume the weather's better than wherever I am, which is the Chicago area.
that's honestly probably true, Scott.
Hey, 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 don't knock the Chicago weather all
No,
the
no.
time. Sometimes,
I'm I lived in the Midwest and I don't anymore, so that's all I need to say there.
I know I wonder if we have any Midwest folks. Actually, we should see. Chi-Town is my favorite in the summer. Sarah, I'm with you. I think greatest city in the world, period, but also especially in the summer and fall. I'm biased, I admit, but
We
ran
have
the Chicago
Ohio.
Marathon, right on. Ohio. Yes, we got Midwest.
Oh
Now
yeah.
the real test is do we have any Packers fans? Because we had a conversation pre-webinar of Carly's love for the worst team in the NFL, Green Bay Packers, and Nia's at least swag that she has. So hopefully we don't have any
I don't
on.
know if y'all can see that, but I'm actually rocking the Packers today. I was gonna change into a button up because I'm like, it's a webinar, let's be fancy. And
Nah.
Scott and Carly were like, no,
Su
keep the Packers
Su
on.
Susan said yes, Packers. Ugh. I'm glad that you're here, Susan. I really am, but I'm not glad for your football allegiance.
Rebecca says Packers, no thanks.
That's
So
what
there
I'm
you go,
talking about.
Scott.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Diehard Chicago Bears fan. So, you know how it is.
All right, folks, I can see how many of you have answered the poll, and it is not all of you. So, going once, going twice on the poll. We're going to get started in just a minute. I know we have folks trickling in still. Um, but anybody who didn't answer the poll, last few seconds to do that. I'm going to share those answers out. And what I would love for you all to do as well is open up your workbook. This is one of our workbook webinars for those of you who have been to some Instrumentl events before. You know, we love to do our workbooks. So there's 2 options there. One is you can make a Google Doc copy. So if you're a Google Suite user, you click that link, it'll make a copy. It's going to be yours to keep. No one else has access to it. You can edit it. If you're not a Google Suite user, there's a PDF version there as well that you can use to follow along. All right, let's end this poll and look at our results. We actually have a good bit of first-time Instrumentl event attendees in the room today. Welcome, everyone. That's so
Yeah.
exciting to have you here. I'm sorry that the first time you hear me is when I sound like this, but I promise it only gets better. And Scott and Carly, you see some of these CRM questions here. These are going to be interesting as we dive into our content today. Really even across the board.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I love getting to see kind of where people are at, and yeah, there's a handful of challenges I think we're gonna speak to, but this is super helpful.
All right, on that note, let's get into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very special CRM crash course. Today's session is a special one for two big reasons. First, we don't usually dedicate our events to tools. We tend to focus on high level strategy, best practices, and the chat, you all are always like, I love that idea, but what tools are you using to actually do that? Right? So, CRMs are hands down the hottest topic in that category. So, today we're going full deep dive into what your CRM should actually be doing to support modern fundraising. And if you're one of the folks in the chat who's been asking for more tech focused content, we have a lot more of these coming in the summer. The second reason today's event is special is because we're joined by our friends at Virtuous, Carly and Scott, who you've sort of met, but you'll meet more formally in just a second. They're arguably the experts when it comes to fundraising CRMs. So you're not just hearing theory today, you're hearing directly from the source. I can see folks saying they cannot access the workbook. So I'm pasting the links again here. Let me know if you're still having a problem with opening it. And for any of you who have managed to open it, let me know in the chat as well. So I know if it's like everyone's having this problem or is it just a couple edge cases that we need to solve? And I'll keep an eye on the chat as we go through this. Some quick FYIs about Yes, Tracy. It's going to prompt you to make a copy, and that means that it'll copy the exact document into your Google Drive, and then it's going to be your version. So I can't see it, I can't access it, it's yours to keep. So go ahead and click copy for the Google Doc version. Thank you, everyone, for confirming that it's working for you. And if you're still having problems, let me know. I'll try to work with you as we move through this. Some quick FYIs. This is about 60 minutes long. We're going to have a presentation. We'll have time for a Q&A, but we are going to keep our conversation very chatty today. You can already see Scott, Carly, and I like to chat. So if you have questions that come up as we're going through the content, please drop them in the chat box. I'll surface them with our speakers. This event is being recorded. You'll get the replay in your inbox tomorrow. And I know we're all very busy. We're working hard. Q3 is about to wrap up, so I'm sure we're like drowning in deadlines. If you need to step away at any point, please feel free to do so. We will be right here, but I do want you to stick around till the end because we have a fun raffle today. Two of you will win $50 gift cards to a vendor of your choice. So stick around till the end to see that happen. And before we dive in, just to introduce myself to any of our first timers, my name is Nia. I'm an events and community manager here at Instrumentl. My job is to develop helpful and educational events like this one to share with our community of grant seekers, fundraising professionals, and I actually come from the nonprofit world. So prior to Instrumentl, I worked in rainforest conservation and research, but I am not the expert in the room today. And with that, I want to introduce Scott and Carly, who you've already heard from, but let's get a little formal round of intros. Scott, Carly, I would love for you to tell us your role, your background, and maybe your favorite part of working with nonprofits.
Yeah, I would love to. Super pumped to be here. Love seeing the activity in the chat. So let's keep that going. And in fact, Rebecca said, what is a CRM? We're actually going to get to that in just a second. So that's a great question. I love that you asked that. We're going to answer that. But before we do intro, my name is Scott Holthouse. I am here in the Chicago area and here with the Virtuous team. I manage a lot of our campaigns and programs and ongoing content. So from our podcast to getting to have webinars like this, we really get to be a part of this. I've spent about a little over 4 years at the intersection of nonprofits and technology, and so everything from online giving to database to CRMs to the technology that sort of is the layer under how you engage with your donors and with people online is really where I've spent a lot of time. Before that, served in nonprofits in the faith sector for about 15 years. So bring some of that experience of being in the work as well as really exploring how does technology and strategy come together to really provide the biggest impact. So pumped to be here, and I'm going to hand it to Carly for her intro.
Thanks, Scott. My name is Carly Berna. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Virtuous, but also the fundraiser in residence. I spent 10 years before this in the nonprofit space. I was the Chief Marketing and Development Officer at a nonprofit in Phoenix, running basically all of the fundraising and marketing channels. During that time, I also had to go through a CRM switch myself. So I went and looked at multiple CRMs and went through the process that we're going to be talking about today. And I ended up choosing Virtuous. So I was then a 7-year Virtuous customer. So really understand the types of things that you're looking for when it comes to technology and the use of your CRM. And then I joined Virtuous last year. Nia, you asked like, what's our favorite part about working with nonprofits? And really, I would say it's just being able to empower them with the right types of tactics and tools that are more than just theory. There's a ton of theory out there, but like what does this look like to actually increase your donor retention? To actually improve your fundraising and what can you do to see those numbers move? So we'll be talking about that a lot today, but happy to be here with all of you.
You're muted, Nia.
Oh my gosh,
We
y'all.
got it. We got it. We're back.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
Yeah.
Carly. You'll notice, folks, that we really try to bring in experts who don't just know the tools and strategies they're talking about, but have actually been in the nonprofit world. And I know I said I've been in rainforest conservation research, but Scott and Carly have years on my nonprofit experience. So I'm really excited to bring in folks who have, been on the ground doing this work. And now we have some strategies to share. So,
Yeah.
what we're going to be covering today, we'll start with the very basics just to make sure we're all on the same page, exploring what CRMs even are, why now is the best time to take a long, hard look at your CRM, your systems of choice. We'll explore what capabilities a strong modern fundraising CRM really needs to support your work in 2025, 2026, beyond. Think of it as like a checklist to evaluate whether your current tools are setting you up for growth, whether they're potentially quietly holding you back. And then we're also going to have a quick conversation about how to figure out what's right for your specific team because there isn't a one size fits all solution, right? Not when it comes to any tech. So, like I said, it's going to be a very conversational presentation. Two things before we dive in. First, make sure you have your workbook out. It's designed to help you capture notes. You can take these back to your team, your leadership. It'll help you pinpoint where your current system might be falling short. It'll help you identify new opportunities, and also act as a quick evaluation rubric when you're exploring new tools. And then second, I already said this, but if a question comes to mind at any point, just drop it in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on everything, and I'll jump in with questions for Carly and Scott throughout the presentation. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Carly and Scott and ask that they start at the very beginning, which is what even is a CRM?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great place to start. I think there's like at a foundational level, a CRM is a database that is tracking, donors, volunteers. It's tracking giving. It is sort of this database and backbone for your organization. And now there's an idea of here's what a CRM is, and then I think there's probably another question of what should a CRM be and what should it do, because ultimately, like for a nonprofit, your CRM is hopefully the engine at your fundraising, like at the center of your fundraising, to where it isn't just tracking information. It's not just a digital filing cabinet, but it's actually a tool that grows your fundraising, that increases donor engagement, that's actually used in a way to where you can really build those personalized connections and do it in a way where it's not adding more to your plate, but it's actually working for you and working with you. And so, Carly, I know that you've spent a ton of time not only in CRMs but evaluating them, working in them. So I would, yeah, love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, first, I just want to define CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, in case you ever get asked that trivia question. Obviously, here we're referring to donors, sometimes refer to it as a DMS, like donor management software. But yeah, I think it's really easy for us as fundraisers to think of our technology as just a place to put our data. This is where our donor information is stored. This is where John Smith's name and giving history is. But really, you should be at a place where you need to have technology that is helping you grow your fundraising. That was where I was at, where I was like, okay, we have these big goals and we have this big mission, but I don't have any new types of fundraising tools that are going to help me improve my metrics and improve my fundraising. So your CRM should be more than just a piece of technology that you kind of overlook, but almost think of it as like a fundraising partner.
And I think it's important that we're having this conversation now, right? So, Scott, tell us a little bit about why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really important conversation to have because, well, let me ask this: as you all interact with various digital platforms, whether that's Amazon or Netflix or Hulu or whatever the platform might be, how often do you experience a one size fits all experience? It's a rhetorical question because the answer is never, because those our digital experience, which is the way that so many of us engage with the organizations that we like, that we support, the brands that we engage with. It's personalized and it knows us, and that's the world that your donors live in. A personalized experience with two-way communication, and the reality is that's shifted fundraising. But so many organizations are still operating with tools and with strategy designed for a world that doesn't really exist anymore. The donor expectations have changed, and honestly, the cost of falling behind. We often think of like, well, how much does something cost when we kind of take action? But there's actually a cost to inaction as well. And that's growing higher and higher as the expectations really change. And so, responsive fundraising then is our belief that you can build personal connections with donors and grow giving in a way that really cuts through the noise and connects with them, with who they are, with what they really want to know and experience with your organization. And the reality is, most CRMs, as we talked about, were designed for a different world where, yes, we want to track some information and transactions and kind of store it in that, digital filing cabinet. And they haven't been built to treat every donor like a major donor. And so it's really important right now that we're having these conversations and thinking about the strategy we're using and the tools, because when those come together, we just see really, really amazing, things happen for organizations.
Yeah, I want to just double down on and one thing and then comment on the last thing you said. If you think about the way that you interact with different companies around you, whether it's Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, whatever, you expect them to know you. You expect them to give you recommendations that make sense to you. That's what our donors are expecting of our nonprofits now. They're expecting to get letters in the mail and in email where you know them, where you know that they came to that event last week and they graduated this year with this degree and they love to give to this specific animal shelter. Like they want those details because they're used to that everywhere else. So why should it be any different with nonprofits? And that's what we're trying to do with Virtuous's platform. I do want to comment though that Virtuous's platform still does all the things we have to do, like reconcile accounting and manage your nonprofit in all the ways that you need to. So it does, we still have to abide by tracking transactions and all of those things, but it also allows you to fundraise in a way that's very personal to your donors. I saw in the chat someone asked, do most CRM users nowadays do batch gift entry or single gift entry, then run a report? We have been doing batch entry so we can catch any mistakes. But I'm wondering if it is necessary and limits what CRMs we will consider. Um, so it really depends on the organization. I will say the Virtuous entry system, gift entry system, there is like I don't even call it like a holding queue in a way, which is kind of like batch gift entry where it imports and then it kind of flags for you where there might be an issue with a transaction, like, oh, hey, maybe this is a duplicate. And you might want to consider that before importing it. Or this donation doesn't have a segment code on it. So you don't want to bring it in because it's not going to have that donor source information. So that is really helpful. I had moved from a system previously where we just batched everything in and never looked at it, and then we just had such messy data. And we'll talk about why data is so important. Your data in your CRM has to be so clean for you to be able to do this type of personalized, responsive fundraising so that you are recording the right data on your donors and you're talking to them in a way that makes sense to them. But that all goes back to clean data. So yes, Virtuous takes batch entry in the way that I was just explaining with the holding
Yeah.
queue, but you just want to make sure that your data is clean and you have a CRM that does both track transactions and all the things your nonprofit needs to do, but also allows you to scale personalization and grow giving.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to, Nia, if I could just jump to the next slide, which is really talking through some of these shifts. And Carly's right. Like it's not well, it doesn't do these things anymore, but it is adding onto and really is a platform that allows what's needed of modern fundraising today. And so there's three critical shifts. One from transaction recording. To relationship building. So again, donors aren't looking to only be data points in your database, but like how do they feel known, understood, valued? Like you understand their unique motivations, which then allows you to communicate with them accordingly. And so really knowing that the CRM should enable that relationship building, should enable that intelligence, not just tracking. And then from one-way communication to responsive engagement and responsive fundraising. So, that's moving from a one size fits all spray and pray, like, you know, we're going to mail out one newsletter to everybody, to like engaging with donors with what they want, what they have, how did they come to know you? What channels do they communicate on? Is it direct mail? Is it email? Is it phone? Is it text? And so really having systems that adapt to this donor behavior and not forcing your donors to adapt to you and your communication. And then finally, from siloed departments to unified experiences. So knowing that you have a team and that team needs to be able to see that information on a donor and understand everything that donor has done with your organization, how they've interacted with not just a development and advancement team, but really everybody. So CRM's our CRM platform really breaks down those silos to give that holistic view. And Deborah, I see. Can you explain the terms that you use? Absolutely, I'd love to. I probably used some that I should go back and define. Carly, did I? I feel like you already caught me with CRM, which was really helpful because I didn't define that. But yeah, how would you kind of help define some of these things or expound on that
Can
for
I
folks?
ask y'all, because I know this is like kind of a virtuous specialty, but can I ask y'all to define responsive fundraising?
That's what I was going to say, Scott. That's probably the main one.
Perfect. Go for
You,
it.
oh, okay. Really, it's the methodology that Virtuous was built on. We when you think responsive, think about your listening to your donor data, whether, like Scott was saying, the donor wants to give to a certain cause or through a certain channel, then you're connecting to that donor in a way that makes sense to them, and then suggesting the best next step for them. Now, that could be a financial ask or a volunteer ask, just something that makes sense to them, and then learning from that data. So it's really just this cycle that allows you to respond to the information they're giving you, which comes back to, like I was saying, having clean data. Our donors are giving us information by every action they take with us, whether they're going to to our website, what page they're going to, what letter they give to, what email they opened. It's taking all of that data and responding to them in a way that makes sense to them. So they feel like, oh, this is relevant and we have a personal relationship.
And I know we definitely have some folks in the room who are, like grant specialists and maybe not as in tune with like individual giving, major donors, things like that. And so I think if we wanted to translate that idea from the grant world to this, it's when we're thinking about, we often talk about spray and pray not being the best approach in grants. We're not writing one proposal or one LOI and shooting it out there to every grant maker in the country, right? We're looking at things like their giving history. We're looking at things like their current priorities. We're looking at the NTEE codes and their 990 forms to figure out what cause areas they're prioritizing. And then we're adapting our LOI. We're responding to their priorities through our application to make it very tailored, to make it specific to this grant maker, right? So I think it's a similar idea here. And what I want to do is we've set the stage for why CRMs are critical to our fundraising work. Carly and Scott are part of a team that have spent many years building what is one of the leading CRMs in in the world, honestly, right? And so they have a lot of nitty-gritty best practices that they know, the capabilities that exist. I think for a lot of us who haven't evaluated CRMs in a while, we're not even sure like what CRMs can do at this point. There's so much that's changed, right? So Carly and Scott are about to walk us through some of those capabilities, those non-negotiables. But before they do, I would love to hear from you, from those of you who have CRMs or you have systems in place. What's a capability? What's your non-negotiable when it comes to staying on top of relationships? Whether that's with grant makers, whether it's with funders, donors, anything you want. Maybe it's something your current CRM does that you're obsessed with, or something it doesn't do that you found a workaround for some other way. Are there non-negotiables that already exist in your system? And I'd love to hear from any of you who have CRMs in place. And for those of you who maybe are brand new to CRMs and like tracking relationships, we're about to get into a perfect crash course for you. So I'm actually going to, Scott and Carly,
Yeah.
ask you to start off with our 10 essential capabilities, and then we can look back into the chat box as folks have had a chance to sort of share their key non-negotiables.
Yeah, that's great. I know Arnold asked the question, how does fundraising, I think in the CRM affect the three critical shifts? And so I just wanted to make sure that we touch on that. The again, those shifts from transaction recording to relationship building, from one-way communication to responsive fundraising, from siloed departments to unified experiences. Using your CRM when you have the right platform, it allows you then to, some of those later things that we mentioned. It really allows you to actually step into those in a way that like you're not adding more to your plate, but you're actually using a tool to help fuel those things. So it's not that it doesn't come with void of strategy and void of saying, okay, this is how we're going to actually engage this tool in this system. But that is kind of how it provides a platform that enables those things. So
And
yeah.
we've got a lot of great non-negotiables in the chat already. I know you guys are about to dive into the 10 that you consider must-haves, but I just want to shout out some of the things that we see from folks right now. Leanne says volunteer and donor information on the same platform. So something that allows like cohesive tracking, right? Emails to donors, marketing communications must be within the CRM, says Michelle.
Yeah.
Automation and grant records and them being part of the pipeline, says Autumn. Tracking volunteer hours, says Austin. So we can see from this chat already that your CRM is going to be very much unique to your organization. There isn't something that's just cookie cutter. This is what you need, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's unique needs everywhere, and that's part of where even as we go through this 10, these 10 lists, some of these things you might hear and say, well, yeah, I knew that, and we have that. And some of them you're going to go, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that. Or how can we actually, use our technology for that? This is not meant to be this is meant to be something that sparks ideas and engagement and maybe even some innovation around how you're using your tools, or as you're evaluating tools, really what you should be thinking about and looking for. So I just want to clarify that as well as we march through these things.
All right, I'm about to jump to the first must-have capability. Folks, open up your workbooks if you don't have them open. This is really where you can start to take notes on the capability, start thinking about, is this a capability that already exists for you? Is it something you really need? Is it something you haven't thought about yet? So let's get into it.
Let's do it. All right, number one, AI powered donor intelligence. And so you're probably asking yourself, like, well, first of all, I'm hearing a lot about AI. So what does that mean? What are we talking about? And Carly mentioned it earlier, but being able to understand how your donors interact with your organization. And when I say interact, I mean everything from communication to your website to giving to volunteering to attending events to everything. Being able to understand that and then use that to see patterns in behavior in again timing, giving, gift asks, amounts, all those things that are really kind of important data points. Being able to analyze those signals and then predict and suggest the right next steps is just a massive tool in being able to engage with your donors.
Yeah, what this looks like really is like if someone asked you, who are your next best major donors? Maybe you have 100 major donors and you're like, we need more. Are we supposed to go out and find them? Like, what's the way to do that? Using AI that is able to look at your donors' giving history and maybe their wealth information, capacity, and say, hey, there might be 10 people in your database right here that maybe you're not paying attention to in that way because maybe they've only given $10. They're just kind of like tipping you and testing out your organization. Using AI to look at those things like who are your next 10 major donors, or even like who are your next 10 recurring givers. You have a recurring giving program, you want to expand it. Where are the people we should look at yet next? AI can really help you look at those signals and determine those next best steps.
And I
Yeah.
know I want to bring back the grant conversation for any of the folks in the room who are like grant specialists again, but we talk about this a lot when we talk about prioritizing funders. First of all, how are we figuring out what funders even care about if they've never given to us before? And that's looking at their giving history and seeing how much they tend to give. And then I know a lot of you use AI. I know Paul is in the chat right here. I just saw Paul. Paul loves using AI, right? So there's a lot of ways that we already use AI when it comes to grant making. And that might sometimes feel a little bit easier because a grant maker is essentially an institution. There's so much more data out there, but that can be translated to individuals as well, as Scott and Carly are saying. All right, let's move to number 2.
Yeah. Number 2, connected communication channels. And so I think it's important to remember your donors, they don't think in silos. They just think of how they interact with your organization. So if the email that you send is not aware of the text message that the donor received, or that they actually were at an event last week, or that they gave, within the last 30 days or whatever whatever the examples are, it can really create a fragmented experience. And so again, one CRM profile that can actually capture activity across email, text, phone, direct mail, events, volunteering, all of that allows you to have that context and understand when all those channels are communicated, like the way that your donor's being engaged with.
Yeah, and I know one of our biggest pain points when I was in the nonprofit space was that a donor would call in and they would say, hey, I just got this mail piece. And when we were on multiple systems, the person answering the phone would be like, can you tell me about that mail piece? Like, what's on it? What does it say? And it just felt like we didn't know what was happening with the donor. So to be able to see all of those communication channels in one place, almost like your like Facebook news feed or your Instagram news feed of like, they just got this email, they just got this mail piece, they just got this phone call. So you can see what's happening to every donor. You can tailor communication that way. And then again, it feels like a real personal relationship.
All right, let's go to number 3.
Number 3, automated donor journeys. You don't have to spend too much time around Virtuous to know that we love automation, and it is a really powerful tool. My guess is a lot of people on this webinar or watching this recording, if it's later on, feel the tension of being stretched thin, of having a lot to do, of having full plates. And so automation ensures every donor gets timely, relevant communication, that they're communicated with and connected with, even when your team is overwhelmed, even when your team might only have 1 or 2 people who can dive into that. And so when I say automated donor journeys, things like a welcome series or a lapsed donor re-engagement or things like that, that are set up to run based off of triggers that happen. So it could be a first time gift. It could be a number of things that actually trigger an automation, and then that's happening for you. And really, we've seen these personalized journeys really, and the automated ones really outperform just a sense of, hey, I'm going to make sure to do all this manually, because there's only so much that you can do, and that only scales so much. And so this automation really allows to free up staff time, but also to be far more personal and consistent in engaging with donors.
Yeah, and External automation is great, like Scott just said, to do a donor welcome series, etc. But it's also important that you use automation internally too. So say you normally pull a list of all of your donors who gave over $10,000 so that you can send out, personalized thank you notes with a system that allows you to do internal automation that automatically pulls that list, automatically gives you a task or gives it to a certain person that says, hey, this donor just gave $10,000. You should reach out to them. There's a lot of automation you can do internally that allows you to save time that perhaps your staff is just wasting manual time doing. I just gave one example, but all sorts of things that maybe your database manager is doing manually that you could save time. We see our customers say that they save about 20% of admin time just by empowering internal automation.
All right, let's go number 4.
Number 4, insight-driven dashboards. You manage what you measure, they say, and honestly, you can't improve the things that you aren't measuring. So, especially when you think of individual fundraising, having real-time insights and dashboards that provide those. And when I say a dashboard, like you open your CRM and you can have that information in front of you. It's not okay, I need an hour to organize this report, another hour to run it, and then I'm going to need to take time to organize it and present it. No, it's like all there for you. What that allows is to make faster, smarter decisions, and really to be able to see the insights as they're happening, day to day, and not month to month or year to year only. Now, obviously, you can step back and look at those trends and be able to see those patterns as well, which is so important. But being able to see those insights, what you need to know, when you need to know it, allows you then to take that to make smarter decisions and actually align your team around what matters most and what's going to actually move the needle when it comes to fundraising.
Yeah, and being able to customize those dashboards is really important. And it really breaks down that team silos we were talking about earlier. Many times you log into your CRM and you just have one dashboard. With Virtuous, you can actually customize a dashboard for every single employee so that maybe your major donor team logs in and they see their portfolio, but your marketing team logs in and sees the latest open rate of the email you sent yesterday. So they're seeing the information that they need. And once they set it up, that's their home screen when they log in. So again, it's giving that information to them so they're not having to dig for it right in front of them every single day, and it's custom to each employee.
And I want to call out here. I know we have a lot of folks in the room who are here specifically because they have a CRM, they know it's not getting the job done for them, and they want to see, what are the next ways we can level up. I did notice though, we have some folks in the chat who are like, we don't have a CRM, never even heard of a CRM. Like, is this relevant for me? And I want to say, similar to how we run all of our Instrumentl workshops too, everything that you hear right now shared by Carly and Scott is also a strategy. So if you don't have a CRM, you don't think you'll be getting a CRM in the next 6 months, you can still create insight-driven dashboards. And it's going to be a little bit more manual. You're going to have to be in charge of it yourself. But these are strategies that you should be thinking about in your fundraising. Do we have a central place where we go to see the cohesive data? How did that campaign do? What landed? What didn't? How are we reviewing these things? So this idea of an insight-driven dashboard, amazing if it's in your tool and it's all done for you. But for those of you who are, still bootstrapping a little bit, there are ways to think about integrating this into, maybe use Excel spreadsheets right now, and that's fine. You can start on spreadsheets and eventually you'll grow up to, the point where you need a really comprehensive CRM. But I just want to point out that these are also strategies. They're not just tech features, right? And on that note, let's hop on over to 5.
Yes, 5. And Nia would love to, to have you kind of share in this as well, because I know one of the things that we love is the integration between Virtuous and Instrumentl and being able to see these tools work together. But yeah, I think that that's one of the things that is really important. Obviously, Instrumentl lives in the grant world. We live in the fundraising world, but those come together oftentimes. And I think it's so important for that to be tied together, because when you have a fundraising strategy and you have grants, to be able to have a platform where you can see both, and avoid things like missed deadlines, reporting errors, all of that stuff, is really helpful to again reduce the work that's on your plate, but also then to be able to see success in both of those areas.
100%. Grants should not be thought of as a whole separate thing compared to, major donors or individual giving or peer-to-peer fundraising. It's all part of our overall fundraising program, right? And so obviously we have a lot of folks in the room who are Instrumentl users, and better than all of us that your grant program isn't operating in a silo, and it shouldn't be siloed in your tech kit either, right? For anyone in grants work, that it's a whole different animal still compared to many other types of fundraising. There's still that element of human touch, but there's so many other nuances to consider and to track. And so having a built-in grant management system or a way to build in a grant management system is super critical, because there's going to be very important nuances there. Some of the things we may be tracking across the grant journey include things like internal and external due dates, for your LOIs, for your drafts, scheduled project milestones, amounts of the grant, how much you asked for versus how much you were actually awarded, what the grant is for, any of the red tape, the restrictions, how the funds are going to be used, the submission process, literally the password and the email address associated with the grant maker's website. Deborah says, what is LOI? Sorry, thanks for catching me, Deborah. LOI is a letter of intent. So sometimes grant makers will require you to submit a letter before you can actually apply. And there's a whole separate process there, because grants are not an easy thing to work on. You might be tracking things like previous grant recipients, the last time you applied to this grant maker, if you have board member connections. So you can get very nitty gritty with grants. And so it's not something that can very easily fit into just any CRM. It has to be grant specific, right? And so Scott already called out, obviously, we're Instrumentl. We love the grant management system we've built, and we love that it integrates with Virtuous, because we have a lot of folks who use Virtuous as well. And that way, Instrumentl translates to sort of that larger system. But again, going back to that idea of spreadsheets, you can build this out manually as well, customize. We actually run workshops on this, so I won't get into it right now because I want to leave time to cover all of our 10 points. But the idea here being that grant management doesn't very neatly fit into other types of relationship management things. So you need something specific for grants.
Yeah,
Does that cover what we wanted to cover with this one?
I think so.
Awesome. Let's go to number 6.
Number 6. All right, we're doing good. I think we're keeping a good pace. We're on the back half, and we are jumping into empowering donor-centric relationships, not just transactions. And one of the things that Nia said, that I just want to echo is, yes, like Virtuous is a platform that enables and allows everything that we're talking about. But a lot of what we're talking about too is a fundraising strategy that is really, in my opinion, in our opinion, is essential today. So this is one of those where, like, understanding that donors give to causes they care about, not just organizations. So they give to the things that they're impacted by, that their heart is pulled towards, and that personal connection really drives long-term giving. And so, like shifting kind of the mindset from that to where all of these donors just kind of come to us and they've come to the organization, and so of course they're going to just open our newsletter that we send once a month or whatever. To donors have given because they were sparked by generosity and there was a connection point made, and so now we need to understand that, be really clear on that, and then act on that information. So supporting, like understanding donor personas, like who is your donor? What do they care about? What are some of the, I mean, even creating an actual document and profile around here's what our donor personas are, their preferences, their life stage, their communication, all of that. Not just, this person gives a certain amount, but that allows you to move from, again, just sort of, we're going to blast everything to everyone, to we have these really donor-centric, we've built those donor-centric relationships, therefore then we can act on that. And that increases the impact then of your engagement and communication exponentially.
Yeah, just an example of this is probably all of you, after someone gives a gift, you send out a thank you transaction email, right? It's like a receipt. Thanks for your gift. Here's your $10 receipt so that you can use it for your taxes. That's a perfect example of a very transactional communication with your donors. If you have a CRM that allows you to see, hey, this person just gave as a first time donor to our water fund through email, you could send them something that was a series of emails that is based on the water cause that connects to them immediately and isn't just a, hey, here's your $10 receipt, but you would know they're new, they care about water, they're digital first person. And so maybe you give them suggestions for signing up for your email newsletter or a podcast or YouTube channel or something digital, along with addressing the water cause and that they're new to the organization, telling them about the organization. That's one example, but to be able to do that at scale is where you set it up where everyone or groups of people have customized journeys like that. So after someone gives a gift, instead of that just transactional thank you receipt, they're getting a customized journey that makes them again feel like there's a relationship there.
All right. No, we have number seven and actually number eight. So number seven and eight, I think can kind of go together. So number seven
Sneak
is
peek.
integrate. Sorry, yeah, you can just switch back and forth every 10 seconds. And then no, I'm just kidding. Um, integrate with best in class tools, and then also scalable infrastructure. So, what I want to make sure that we're careful of is like, I think it's good to use sometimes the right words for things, but also to explain them. So, I don't want to get too like software tech world. But really explain like, so integrate best in class tools. Like it's the reason Virtuous and Instrumentl are partners, because Instrumentl is a phenomenal tool for what you use it for, and Virtuous is as well. You use them for different applications, but when you can bring them together and they work together and integrate to where like I don't have to go over here and do all of this and then go over here and do all of this, but I can actually have one place that I work and they talk to each other and they know the information that's happening. That's where you can start to continue to kind of build a fundraising ecosystem that is serving your whole organization. And then when we talk about scalable infrastructure, I think it's important. Some of you are at the point where you are, I know from the poll, you're considering a CRM change, you're considering stepping into a CRM, you're looking at maybe entering into this world. I think one of the things that's really important is to look at a system that's going to be able to grow with you for a long, long time. I'll tell you, I mean, we live in the CRM world. A CRM transit, I mean, Carly can tell you, she's been through this. A CRM transition is not something you're going to do every 6 to 12 months. It's not something that you want to have on your list every year to do. And so looking at a platform that says that's going to allow that growth and really support kind of long-term goals, I think is super important as part of this conversation and as we're talking through, the really what a CRM needs to have in 2025 today.
Yeah, I think the important thing to call out there is when you're looking at your worksheet and you're going through and you're saying, is this something that we need today? Like, do we need the ability for our CRM to track in-person events? No, not today, but next year we're planning to do an in-person event and we need it then. That's already something to be thinking about today because, like Scott said, it's not going to be a quick process to find a new CRM and transition to it and get your whole team set up on it. So you really need to be thinking beyond just what do you need this quarter and what do you need next quarter, but where do you hope to be 4 quarters from now? And will your CRM, the one that you're evaluating, be able to support you there?
Yeah, I think that's great. I just want to add real quick, when we say integrate with best in class tools, that of course can mean integrate with a software like Instrumentl, but it also means if you think about maybe your tools now, maybe you have, like I had, two CRMs, an email system, a marketing automation system, a direct mail system. And so we had like 5 tools that weren't integrated at all. We were uploading CSV files back and forth between everything. The best you can do is to find something that all of that is in one. So it's really more like a holistic platform, but then still offers integrations with other softwares like Instrumentl. So if you're thinking about, wow, it feels like we have just like kind of this like chaotic tool system, think about maybe we could take those tools and put them in one system and then just integrate more seamlessly that's not manually.
Yeah.
And I would love also, I know earlier when we talked about non-negotiables and folks were sharing in the chat, we had Blake and Aiden and Sarah, I think, all call out integrations being their non-negotiable. So Blake, Aiden, Sarah, if you're in the room and you have some integrations, some ways that you've set up, multiple tools across your tech stack to really talk to each other, I'd love for you to share some of those tips in the chat too. I know Arnold just asked, how can we find the best in class tools? So if y'all have any recommendations, things that are working for you right now, please go ahead and share in the chat as well.
Yeah, we're actually going to hit on that too, Arnold, just a bit. Like, how do you identify and prioritize the right tech investments? Also, Nia, your ability to remember chat and who said what is remarkable. And that was awesome because I'm like, there have been so many chats and you can remember the names and what they said. And I think that's amazing.
I'm on
Um,
it. It's because I'm not paying attention to what you're saying, Scott. No,
Well,
I'm just
that's
kidding.
fine. That's fine. Um, Carly, I would love to toss this question to you though. Daniel asked, how does Virtuous kind of different or differ from Salesforce for nonprofit? You went through examining a lot of different options and CRMs and all that stuff. So how would you answer that?
Yeah, I was actually just answering Daniel in the chat, but I'll just read to you what I
Ah,
typed. Um, Virtuous is built for nonprofits specifically and for fundraising. Salesforce can definitely be used for nonprofits, but it was not built specifically for fundraising. As you know, Salesforce is applicable to other companies that are outside of nonprofit. Virtuous is built only for nonprofits. Also, just my personal experience, you can customize Salesforce in a ton of different ways, but it requires that you have a developer or someone that you're paying to build those integrations and customizations, which, depending on the size of your organization, might be extremely costly. And then you have to have staff that really understands how to operate Salesforce. Virtuous, you can also customize without a developer just by options within the system. Then you can integrate with other tools like we talked about. But the user interface is much easier for fundraisers, much more intuitive. We build in a lot of the responsive fundraising methodologies. Um, I would say for us, when I was in a $30 million nonprofit, even Salesforce was a little bit more than we were looking for, like from staff time and development. Virtuous fit better for us because it allowed us to really scale our fundraising, which is what we were trying to do. And those nonprofit fundraising practices were built into the system.
Thank you, Carly. All right. I
yeah.
know we have two capabilities left. Let's maybe go a
Yep.
little rapid fire through them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Number nine, automate personalized engagement at scale. We've hit on this a little bit, but it's being able to like know your donor, personalize that communication, but do it in a way that like you can do that at scale. So as your donor database grows, as you have more people, as you're communicating more, you can still be really personal in your engagement with those people one on one. This is one thing that it is really hard to do manually. It just takes more and more time. So as your database grows, you are going to really have a hard time doing this without a platform that supports it. But I think it's essential as you think about CRM and what it needs to do in 2025. And then Carly, yeah, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I just want to give just a quick practical example here. Say you want to do a lapsed series with donors who are pre-lapsing, meaning they haven't given in 9 months, and when they hit 12 months, they're lapsing. Or maybe a recurring giver, and at 9 months, you want to say something to them because perhaps that's usually the time your recurring givers drop off. This is the perfect example of what would it look like to contact those three different options I just gave. It would be super manual. You would be building out, emails and postcards and letters for each of them and sending them manually. But being able to automate this at scale, where every time someone hasn't given in 9 months, an automated voicemail or postcard or email or letter goes out, depending on the communication preference that they prefer. allows you to do that exact personalized engagement with them in their communication preference and give them content that is relevant to them based on their giving history. So it triggers automatically. This is one example, but think about that multiplied based on wherever your donors are in the journey. But that's really where you're taking all those manual tasks that you're doing and applying automation in a way that makes it really relevant to them and allows you to focus more on donor relationships.
Yeah. And last one too, I know someone mentioned this, I think, about integrating your digital fundraising. So digital fundraising is massive. Being able to pay and donate online, like if that's disconnected from your CRM, it's going to be a big challenge and you're flying blind. So really making sure that there's that tight integration to where not only, again, transactions are syncing to where fund designations are syncing, all of that, but you're actually also then able to take that transaction as the start of a relationship building process as well, to where you go from, yes, this person gave, but now, like Carly mentioned earlier, we know what fund or where they gave to or how they came in. So now we can actually build that relationship and that connection. That integration is massive for that.
Yeah, and just another example of this is if you have your digital fundraising connected to your CRM, say I come to your donation page and I normally give $100. If I go to your donation page and you're starting your ask string at $20, 20, 40, 60, you're really under leveraging the connection there. You really want to be able to start it according to my giving history. So if you have your donation page and your CRM connected in an integrated way, then the donation page would say, oh, this is Carly. She normally gives $100. So let's start the ask string at $100 so we can try to upgrade her and make sure we're hitting her full capacity. Or she really loves donating to dog shelters. So let's make sure we are showing that as an option on the page. So it's again using all that information your donors are giving you and adjusting your donation form accordingly by looking at that giving history and their preferences.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to do a really quick crash course on how we're identifying and prioritizing the right tech investments, right? So Natasha just asked in the chat, for smaller nonprofits with a small donor base, is there a number of donors that a nonprofit should have before investing in a CRM? Which to me is just one angle of like, how do we know it's time to invest in a CRM and how do we know which one that is? And so for those of you who have your workbooks open, you can see a set of questions in there that sort of serves as an evaluation rubric. But Scott and Carly, if you have any quick thoughts on this one, I'd love to get your take. And one more thing, while Scott and Carly are walking us through sort of thinking about the right tech investment, I'm going to launch one last poll because we just talked a lot about these different capabilities and how Virtuous can support you with those. So for anybody who wants to learn more about Virtuous, I'm going to launch a quick poll and you can just let us know right there if you would like a Virtuous demo so you can see some of those features in action.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say it really depends on your organization, and I'm not sure I would use the number of donors as the way to consider because, for example, you could be a massive organization and have a very few number of major donors that are representing that, or vice versa, a ton of general donors who are giving a smaller amount. I think it's about where your fundraising is at, when it's time to start scaling, planning for the future. If you feel like, hey, we're growing, we need to invest in something that allows us to really build our fundraising program, is when I would start looking at that.
Yeah, and I just put 3 questions to ask here in the chat that I think can really frame this conversation. So does this help us build deeper, more personalized relationship with our supporters and with our donors? So as you're thinking about adopting new technology, changing your CRM, stepping into that, all of that, I think that's one. Two, will it give us the insights to make smarter decisions faster? The speed of decision making has certainly grown quite a bit. And is this platform gonna help with that? And then does this eliminate administrative friction while keeping things accurate, compliant? Obviously, the data being clean and accurate is so important. So does it reduce that friction? Does it reduce the work on our plates while making sure the data that we have is clean and accurate? I think those are really important to help frame how to then figure out the tools to invest in and to start that conversation. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Our team does CRM transitions and conversions and changes all day long. And so we can really, we can really kind of help walk through that a little bit more. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of share those questions and hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And folks, you can add in additional columns in your worksheet and put in those questions. And then I also encourage you to put in questions that are specific to your organization because you'll have specific evaluation criteria as well. So we just talked a lot of strategy, a lot of things to think about. You have your worksheet there so you can reference back on everything that was shared because I know that was a lot to keep track of. I just want to quickly wrap us up with what can you do today? You're not going to go ahead and buy a new CRM today and build your fundraising program on it, right? That's just not realistic. It's a long game. But some things you can start doing today is audit your current CRM. Some of you already started this on your worksheet. Figure out, what is working for you? Where are some of those gaps? If you feel like you've been dropping the ball on certain things, it might not have anything to do with you or your team. It might just be the system that y'all are using. So that audit phase, I think, is really important. You can connect with team members and figure out their thoughts as well, because maybe you're the grants person or maybe you're the major gifts officer, right? But there's going to be other people who touch your CRM, who touch that fundraising system that are going to have totally different pain points and totally different requirements. So you want this to really be something that the whole organization has bought into. And then lastly, this is an ongoing process, but figure out what those new tools and automations are out there that might be able to address your needs and start evaluating them. I know some of you here have selected that you want a demo with Virtuous. That's a great place to begin. Other great places to start are figuring out who in your network, what nonprofit peers are already using. What are some of those CRMs that people love? What are some of the tools that people are using? So great
Yeah.
three-step way to sort of get started on this. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I'm curious because I know some people had some questions. We have to wrap up here. And there's probably some people looking to be like, okay, I kind of want to see more. Do you mind putting up that workshop slide real quick?
Yeah, I'm going to
The-
run through these. And also, Scott and Carly, if you have 3 extra minutes to stay, I know we're at time, so a lot of folks are going to drop, but we have a couple questions that if you have a minute to stay over, we can answer. Otherwise, we can try to address those via email afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to call these workshops are going to be a chance for us to really answer like a little more in depth and to show some of these pain points around. Okay, so how does Virtuous actually solve this? So if you wanted to get eyes on that, these are great places to start. So good old QR scan, and that can help you get registered for these. Maybe links can be sent out as well. Yeah, would love to help any way that we can for folks who are, wanting to see a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, and for any of you who are like, well, we come to all Virtuous events, but we've never heard of Instrumentl before, I'll
Yes.
also put the link for our upcoming workshops. We do a lot of grant stuff, so how to find good fit grant makers, funders, things like that. I'm going all over the place with my slides. I'm going back and forth. Somebody wants the Virtuous QR code slide back up. I'll keep this up while I thank Carly and Scott for their time. I know I'm holding y'all over, so if you have meetings to run to, you can just blame me. But thanks so much for jumping in here and just this crash course. I think that's always, it's so hard to boil down, especially when you work day in and day out with your tool to be like, okay, well, what are the 10 features that we're going to talk about? But I think this is why I love bringing in folks who have been on the ground and they've done the fundraising because we have this idea of, well, this is what was really helpful for me back then, and this is what maybe I didn't have back then that honestly would have changed my life. So I love that perspective that y'all bring. So thank you so much for your time. Folks in the
Yeah.
chat are very appreciative as well. So thank you both.
Yeah, it's great being here. Thank you.
And anybody who's dropping off, you have to run. As you close Zoom, there's going to be a feedback form that pops up. As soon as you fill that out, you'll be entered into our raffle. Winners are going to be announced in our email tomorrow. Paula says, where can I find the worksheets? I'll paste that again right here in the chat. And for anybody who wants to stick around for an additional 2 minutes, I'll try to keep this really quick. I think we addressed most questions as we went through them. But Scott and Carly, here's just a couple that we had. Cindy said, what is the highest priority when you're just getting started and you have limited resources? So you're bootstrapping it, you don't have a CRM. I know we just talked about 10 features, but for this person, it's not realistic that they'll get all 10 right away. what's like maybe, and this might be like a personal favorite, but what's one or two that you think is the most important place to start with?
Yeah, for me, it's clean data practices and hygiene. I mean, we didn't put that in the top 10 because it should really be a basic function of your CRM. But if you're really bootstrapping it, like making sure you don't have duplicates, making sure the addresses are correct, making sure email addresses are correct. If that isn't clean, none of these other features can really operate in the way they're supposed to.
And yeah, and I would say the second one of that, I totally agree with Carly. The second one then to me would be automation. Because of that situation, bootstrapping like smaller team, like the more that you can have your tech working for you and connecting and communicating, the better.
Awesome. Thank you. Clean data, automations. I agree actually as far as grants are concerned too. Honestly, as far as anything is concerned, I think clean data is like the place to begin. So I'm not I don't even work for Virtuous, but I agree.
Nice.
And then Margie asked, can you talk for just a minute on how this helps manage volunteers, if at all, in addition to funders? So how are we extending this beyond just like people who are giving money?
Yeah, Virtuous has a full volunteer management system that's both external and internal. So what I mean by that is you can manage them on the back end, but you also can give them, you can control all of the pages that they see when they're registering, when they log into their own portal to see how many hours they've served, when they want to sign up for things. So we have a full platform that is integrated within Virtuous that does volunteer management.
Awesome. And then Dave asked, can donation forms integrate with a website? So I know you spoke about this briefly, but maybe for those of us who aren't quite as tech savvy when it comes to things like that, can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Yes, we have actually two different options for online giving. One that is more enterprise and one that is more basic, but they can both integrate with your website, either as more like an embed code, if that's what you're looking for within your website, or as like a standalone donation page.
Awesome. Thank you. I think let me know if I missed anything, y'all, but I was keeping track of the chat and I think that was the last questions that had gone unanswered. So,
It's
on
great.
that note, thank you all so much for being here. Huge shout out to Carly and Scott as well. I'm going to paste the Virtuous website right here in the chat if anybody wants to go learn more about Virtuous right now. If you selected in the poll that you'd like a demo, Carly and Scott will reach out directly and sort of help you get set up there. And for any of you who are new here, who I haven't met before, I would love to stay in touch with you. So there's my LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can email me, but LinkedIn is a lot quicker. Carly and Scott, anything y'all want to say as we wrap it up here?
Just so we're with you. We're here for you. We love nonprofits. We love supporting fundraisers. We love doing what we can to serve you all. So anything that we can do to help, please reach out, and we'd love to do that.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks, folks, for staying over. I know I took more of your time than promised, but have a fantastic rest of your week, everyone.